Hi, welcome back to Uproarious. I'm Rory, and today we're covering the half-smiling and willing hands exercises. The half-smiling and willing hands exercises are two exercises that are often used together, but they can be used separately, and they rely on the same scientific principles. First, let's talk about willing hands. Willing hands is an exercise that relies on the open hands to help us moderate our mood. It was originally a faith practice, but Marshall Linehan, the creator of dialectical behavioral therapy, took willing hands and studied it and found that it had scientific basis for functioning and that it does work. The idea with willing hands is that we're going to relax our hands in an open and outward position. This is because our brain interprets the open hand as a sign of being vulnerable. And when we do that and there's no repercussions, our brain begins to interpret our situation as being comfortable or safe. So how do we actually do willing hands? It's pretty easy. You want to start by relaxing as much of your upper body as possible, especially your shoulders, arms, forearms, wrists, and hands. We particularly want to make sure that our hands and the area around our palms, our fingers, are as relaxed as possible, and then we want to relax them on the table or our lap as low as possible while still being comfortable. It's important to relax all these body parts as we go because we want to send the very clear message to our brain that we're comfortable and safe. If we're hunched up or our arms are tight, it's going to be less effective, but it will still work. The second skill we're looking at here is called half smiling. It relies on the same principles, but instead of relaxing, we're going to introduce tension to send a happy response to our brain. Half smiling uses the very smallest movement of the mouth, just turning up the corners of your mouth, just enough to feel it, but usually not enough for other people to see it. This sends a message to our brain that we are comfortable and happy. And this is because there are so many nerves there that our brain both receives and sends information to that location. And so when we can change one side of that, even if we're uncomfortable, we will start to send that message of comfort back to our brain, and our brain will begin to relax. So how do these skills actually work? They actually rely on a concept that's easily demonstrated using the cortical homunculus illustration. This illustration shows each body part as a different size depending on how many nerve endings it has that the brain relies on. In this illustration, you can see that the hands and lips are majorly distorted compared to the rest of the body, and that's because there's just so many nerve endings there. So when we use half smiling or the willing hands, what we're doing is we're activating all of those nerve endings to send the same message to our brain at the same time. That's a very powerful way to communicate with our brains, which is why we're starting there. So when do we practice half smiling and willing hands? The answer to that is surprisingly comprehensive. You want to use it everywhere. You want to use them all the time. And the reason for this is that skills that we practice in one situation won't occur to our brain to use in another situation unless we have enough information to draw on that tells our brain to pull in that skill. So we want to use these skills when we're hiking, when we're talking to other people, when we're driving, when we're sitting at home alone, when we're watching television, when we're in the shower. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's probably a good time to practice one or both of these skills. As a quick note, let's talk about why we want to use this skill. We want to use this skill when our emotions do not match the situation at hand. For example, if we're in a normal, calm situation and we're angry or afraid. And we want to use them when we need more control over our emotions. So say there's an emergency or a stressful situation, but we need to be able to navigate it a little bit better without interference from our emotions. Then we want to use our half smiling and willing hand skills. We want to make sure that we're only using these skills to improve our own experience. If we're using these skills to our own detriment for the benefit of other people, that is not an effective time to be using these skills. We want to make sure that we are increasing our own comfort with these skills, and we're reducing our anger and our fear, not changing someone else's emotion with these skills. Next, let's talk about how to extend these concepts into other areas. If you're using a tool or using your cell phone, and you tend to do that with a semi-closed or semi-clenched hand, Remember that the whole time you're doing that, you're sending those signals of discomfort to your brain. So if you're doom scrolling on your phone, holding your phone like this, all you're sending to your brain subliminally from your hand is, I'm uncomfortable. And it tends to make it worse when we encounter uncomfortable things on the internet. But instead of driving us away from those things, we tend to do them more. And this is just because we're sending that constant feedback. So if you are using tools or a cell phone for a lot of your day, make sure to take breaks and use your hands in different ways. Make sure to relax them when you can, to hold things differently when you can. With your cell phone, you might put it down on a surface or hold it with just your thumb instead of holding it with your whole hand. There are all kinds of ways to just expand this idea of relaxing our hands and reducing the amount of tension that they send to our brain. And with half smiling, it can be difficult to practice it while actively speaking. But if you're practicing it when you're not speaking in a conversation, you'll actually send very, very tiny messages to other people that you're comfortable. And this is because even if the person can't look at you and see that you're smiling, they are taking enough information about the shape of your face that their brain is interpreting you as more comfortable because you're doing the half smile. And so if you need to be seen as more comfortable in a situation like at work, using the half smile while you're listening can communicate to the other person that you are more comfortable than you are. Finally, I just want to say that it's appropriate to practice these skills pretty much anywhere, so don't be afraid to try them in different situations. If you find them distracting, just feel free to put them down, but make sure you practice them as many times as possible in as many different situations as possible to train your brain to use them when you need them. Hey, thanks for checking out this video on the half smiling and willing hands exercises. If you want more information, check the description below. Thanks again for stopping by, and remember to be kind to yourself and others.